Hello. In this video, we are going to discuss strategies that will help you earn your best grade in Math 081 because that should be our goal this summer. So we're going to look at some guidelines and some student samples of work for the Extend Your Learning assignments. So as you know, our first Extend Your Learning assignment was due last week on Sunday night. And you can see your grade and your score in the Canvas gradebook. And hopefully by now you've viewed my written feedback and looked at the rubric to get a better understanding of your score on the Extend Your Learning assignment. So the one that we are going to focus on in particular in this video is thinking of two numbers. So again, we're going to talk about how to earn your best grade in Math 081, and we're going to specifically talk about how to meet the expectations of the rubric so that you can get the best grade possible. And make sure you watch this video all the way to the end because I will give you an opportunity to resubmit your assignment to get that best grade so you can feel successful about your first Extend Your Learning assignment. Okay. So let's take a look. First of all, let's look at the rubric. So each Extend Your Learning assignment is graded according to this rubric. And obviously we want to be in the exemplary category. So to earn 20 points out of 20 points, we want to meet the guidelines that I have highlighted here on the rubric. So two important things we need to do in order to earn an exemplary mark is to clearly justify and or explain an answer to all the prompts. So you're going to be writing sentences to explain your answers. So you want to make sure you're using correct vocabulary and that someone else who is reading your work can clearly understand what you're trying to convey. And then also it's really important that all of your necessary mathematical work is shown and that the work is clear and easy to follow. So those are going to be two of the main things to make sure that you're getting that exemplary mark. And you can, of course, read the rest of the descriptions in the rubric to see everything for a 20 out of 20. All right, so let's talk about some of those criteria for the rubric. First of all, why do I have to show my work? Right? You've heard it before, I'm sure, a million times in every math class you've ever taken. But let's talk about why you do have to show your work. By showing your work, you're documenting your mathematical thinking as you interact with the problem. And you're strengthening your knowledge of that given concept. So you're not doing it just for your teacher. You're not doing it just for me. You're doing it for you. And as you're showing your work, you're increasing the chances that you'll be able to successfully complete a similar problem in the future, whether it's in this class or if it's in a future math class down the road. And you're just laying the foundation that you need to be successful. So that's one reason why it's really important to show your work. You also might be wondering, why do I have to explain my answers? Isn't showing my work good enough? Can't I just show my teacher that I can get to the correct mathematical answer? Well, yes and no. Arriving at the correct answer is nice, but by being able to explain the answer, you're really solidifying your own understanding. So being able to explain how to solve a problem demonstrates a deep understanding of the concept and or the process that you're working on. When you can explain the steps you took to solve a problem, you not only understand how to get the right answer, but you understand why you performed the steps that led you to the correct answer. So when you see a similar problem, you can decide if those steps are necessary again or if you're going to need a different approach. A major component of math is recognizing patterns. And by explaining your mathematical thinking, you'll begin to identify those patterns. And then you'll feel more confident when it's time to use those patterns again. With the deep understanding that explaining the problem creates, you can generalize the patterns and solve similar and even more complex problems. So you'll start to recognize certain types of problems, and then you'll know what approach is going to be the best approach to solve those. How do I know if I'm doing a good job explaining my answers? So you might be thinking, okay, I'll explain my answers, but how do I know if this explanation would help somebody else understand it? So I kind of answered the question right there. How do you know if you've correctly or if you're doing a good job explaining your answers? Well, you will know if someone else is able to then understand how to do a similar problem based on your explanation and your help. So try to explain as if you're talking to a fellow student in the class, someone who's generally intelligent and prepared, etc., has a general knowledge of what we're learning, but maybe they're just having a hard time understanding a certain concept, and you're there to help them. In other words, explain your reasoning step by step. Don't just repeat something you read in the notes. Well, it says here to do this, explain it in your own words and really tell them how you approached it and how you applied something that you learned in the media lesson or something that you learned from another problem. Try to pick out the important, relevant points, put them in logical order, and explain or draw a picture of how one step leads to the next. You might also want to pretend like you're writing the answer key. So if someone else was trying to look at your work and follow it, it's almost like you're creating an answer key for them. If you're not there sitting right next to them, could they follow your work and get to the right answer? And when you're explaining your work, if you're not sure how to get the ball rolling, try these sentence starters. My answer is, you fill in the blank. And to get my answer, and then you can fill in the blank. Or perhaps you could start by saying, this problem reminded me of blank. So I blank, fill in the blank. So these are sentence starters. You could try starting with these structures, sentence starters, and then you fill in the specific detail according to whatever prompt or exercise you are working on. Okay, so those sentence starters can be really helpful to get the ball rolling as you're explaining your answers. Okay. Here is some samples now that we're going to look at of student work. So this is sample number 1, where the student was showing us how they found the least common multiple of 15 and 25. So the student Erica, she gave enough detail in her work so another student who was confused would be able to read her work and use it to learn how to find the LCM of those two numbers. So if you're wondering, how do I know if I've shown enough work or if I've shown detailed work, if I'm showing my work in a correct manner, just think about, would someone else be able to look at your work and follow it and be able to do a similar problem on their own based on what you've written down? If so, yes, then you've shown your work and you're doing a great job. You're showing the habits of a successful math student, okay? So this sample of work could easily be followed by a student who needs to learn how to find the LCM of two numbers. So you've definitely shown your work. And another thing you want to think about is, again, yes, you're helping another student by showing your work, but you're also helping yourself because you're laying the foundation for when problems get more challenging and when you go into future math classes. And you're deepening your understanding by showing your work and by not rushing through it. By taking the time to show your work, you're strengthening your own skills and knowledge. So yes, you're helping someone else, but you're becoming better at the same time. Okay, here's another sample of some student work. This student provided us a really, really good explanation to remind us what to do if there's more than one occurrence of a prime factor when we're finding the LCM. So if a certain prime factor shows up more than once in your factor tree, we need to know what to do. So this student provided a unique example. So for instance, the student said, well, let's say I had to find the LCM of 30 and 45. So I know that problem wasn't on the extend your learning assignment, but the student came up with her own just to say, well, let's throw a little bit of a different example in here. And you can see that the number 3 shows up twice in the list of 45, but it only shows up once in the list of 30. And so she explains what to do when a common factor shows up more than once and you're trying to find the LCM. So remember, when you have to explain a process in your own words, the best thing to do is act as if you're explaining it to someone who doesn't know how to do it. They have a general knowledge, right? Like they understand the term least common multiple. They've heard it before, they've watched the videos, but they're still stuck. So they have a little bit of knowledge, but they really do need your help. Be specific so someone else could follow your steps. Okay, so again, this is another really nice example of student work. This student definitely went the extra mile and provided a unique example. And I'm sure at the time she was doing it, she was also strengthening her own understanding. So it wasn't just for someone else to read, but she's strengthening her understanding at the same time. So let's talk about now the last problem on the Extend Your Learning assignment, where we were trying to decide if Layla was correct. Did you know that there were other possible pairs of numbers that Moses could have been thinking of? So what many of us did was we correctly figured out that the numbers 10 and 12, they did have a GCF of 2 and they did have an LCM of 60. So most of us were able to do that, which is great. That means you're able to find the GCF and find the LCM of two numbers. But What we also want to do in this case is ask ourselves, is Layla uh, totally correct? Are those the only two numbers, 10 and 12? And so if you want to find out if those are the only two numbers, test some possible samples of numbers. So try to think a little bit more deeply and a little bit more critically. And then what that's going to do is that's really going to enhance your understanding of the concept. So instead of just testing Layla's answer that was already provided and saying, yep, she must be right, dig a little deeper and strengthen that understanding and see if there's more pairs of numbers that Moses could have been referring to. So it turns out that the numbers 10 and 12 are not the only possible pair of numbers that had a greatest common factor of 2 and a least common multiple of 60. There's actually 3 other pairs. So your goal was to seek out and find those 3 other pairs. So hopefully you can read the feedback that I gave you on your assignment. And guess what? It's not too late. So remember I said watch the video all the way to the end. But really quick, make sure you're using the resources provided in Canvas. So for every week that we have an Extend Your Learning assignment, right before the link for the Extend Your Learning, there will be a content page where I give you a little mini lesson and give you some tips for what you're going to see when you complete the Extend Your Learning assignment. And for instance, right here, this is what the content page looked like for our current Extend Your Learning assignment, thinking of two numbers, the one that we just completed. So you can see that I gave you some examples on how to use a Venn diagram, and then there's a video on how to find the prime factorization of a number, of two numbers, and there's some more explanation on the content page. So definitely make sure you're going through that content page because it's going to have all the tools that you need to be successful on the Extend Your Learning assignment. So use those resources that are provided for you for sure. All right, are you ready to earn your best grade? So here it is. I'm going to give you all the opportunity to resubmit your Thinking of Two Numbers assignment by 11:59 p.m. So that's tomorrow night. So Wednesday, tomorrow night. So if I will unlock the assignment in Canvas, so definitely go in, look at your score, look at the feedback I left you, and if you want to earn your best grade, which we all should, right? We should all want our best grade. I will allow you the opportunity to resubmit now that you've looked at the feedback and watched this video, and I will regrade it. And hopefully we will all find ourselves in that exemplary column on the rubric. So please let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to seeing your resubmitted assignments by the end of the day tomorrow.